here, 2 months to go. And thank you very much for the introduction. That's just a brief history about my bio, which I think most people know. I want to talk a little bit about the home I grew up in, kind of going a little bit deeper dive into my bio. Originally I'm from Orlando, Florida. I grew up there, and at home my dad was an Army veteran. He was a Green Beret in Vietnam. My mother was a nurse. I grew up in a home that we had to work for everything that we wanted. So, for example, my parents had switched me. The public schools were not that great where I lived. They switched me to a Catholic school when I was in 5th grade. I didn't want to go. I had to make all new friends. I didn't want to go to that school, but I went, made new friends. So when 8th grade rolled around, I graduated, and they wanted me to go back to public school for high school because we couldn't afford the private high school, the Catholic high school. So I said, well, gosh, I had to make all these friends. I really don't want to have to go back and make new friends again. I'd like to go to the Catholic high school. And they said, well, you can go there, but you're going to have to pay your own tuition. And so I said, okay, so what do I need to do? And they're like, well, you have to get a job. And one job didn't cut it. So I ended up getting 2 jobs, and I ended up working almost about 3 days a week at the library where I grew up. And then I cleaned houses on the weekends for my mom and her nursing colleagues. And then I gave every paycheck that I earned to my father, and he kept a ledger, which he probably has somewhere. He's probably going to come around and ask me for the money I owe him. But he would write how much I had paid him in my paychecks, and then how much I still owed him. And I was able to go to Catholic school only because I worked hard and I paid for my tuition. So that was kind of the foundation that was set for me. I realized, hey, I could do what I want to do in life, but I'd have to work for it. And if one job didn't cut, I'd have to get 2 jobs. And then what I couldn't cover, my paychecks, then I'd have to owe somebody, and I was accountable for that. So that really just kind of set a standard for me, so that when I wanted to go to college, and I went to college on an ROTC scholarship because that was the only way I was going to afford to go to college. My parents couldn't pay for it, so joined the military, which a lot of us have done. It was a great honor to serve for 10 of the best years of my life with some of the greatest Americans, and then got out and stayed home for 5 years, raised my 4 children with my husband. And then I went back to nursing school and have been a nurse practitioner until December, when I stopped seeing patients just to focus on the congressional run. But 2019, was the year that I ran for the state senate for the first time. And I was just a normal person who was very frustrated with what I saw on television. I'm still very frustrated with what I see on television. I'm still yelling at my television, probably more than ever now. Now I go running through the house screaming, that is a lie. Yeah. And my husband says, I'm going to go for a bike ride and let you settle down until I'll come back in an hour. But I'm still yelling at my television because it still really frustrates me. Because when I showed up there in 2019, and it was a great victory for Virginia Beach. I was the only new Republican senator to show up that year. So I showed up in the year of the blue wave, right, where the Democrats took control of the Senate and the House. We had Ralph Northam in the governor's mansion. So it was literally one-party progressive liberal rule, right? And I refer to it as the danger and insanity of one-party rule. What I sat through as a person, again, new to politics, just showed up there with a front row seat. And every single day, it was we call the jewelry store smash and grab, right? They could come in, get whatever they wanted passed out of the Senate, passed out of the House. Ralph Northam signed it, and it became a law. And we saw attacks on all of our constitutional rights that year. On our you want to talk Second Amendment rights? I mean, I'm sure you remember 2020. It was a nightmare, and we were 2 votes short in the Senate every single time. Our fights for life, our fights for our law enforcement, our fights for our businesses, keeping our kids in school, the way we conduct elections. You name it, we voted, we fought hard, we stood and we spoke and we yelled and we screamed and we voted, and we were always 2 votes short. So that taught me a lot. It was very partisan on a lot of issues. Some of the issues that we're still hearing about now, like for example, I just read today, I read on your Facebook page, the plastic bag tax. That was something we voted against and we lost because we were 2 votes short. Some of this stuff where California Virginia's going to follow the way California conducts their electric vehicle mandates, and so by 2035 all of our cars have to be either electric or hybrid. I remember the day we had that debate and we had that discussion, and I took that legislation, I had a pink highlighter and I highlighted every time the word California showed up 5 different times in that bill, and we stood and we said, we are not California, we are Virginia, we are not the California of the East Coast. And we voted and we lost again every single time. I can't tell you how frustrating that is to sit in a room where you're 2 votes short on issues that I know you and I all care about. So that really motivated me after sitting through that for 2 years. And I think it motivated a lot of us, because last year, what happened? Last year, we saw all of us turn out and vote, right? November was a great victory. That was awesome. We got Glenn Youngkin elected. We got Winsome Sears elected. She now sits in the Senate with us. We got Jason Miyares elected. We flipped the Virginia House of Delegates. And so now they're a stop block for all that legislation. Those were great victories, but Virginians were so tired of what I sat through and what I had a front row seat to. So thank goodness that we had those great victories. That has given all of us hope. The entire country was watching that. I talked to so many congressmen and women who say, thank you for what you guys did in Virginia. We were watching. You guys gave us so much hope for this year, for this coming 2022 midterm election cycle, which we're down to 60 days. Because that's what motivated me to run for Congress. You know, what I sat through in the state level, it's the same thing we're seeing right now coming out of the White House. I mean, last week we sat through Joe Biden's very divisive speech where he's calling half of the country as a threat to our democracy. It is offensive, it is not right, definitely not unifying, but not what's best for America. We sit through that. We see our current Congresswoman voting for things like the, quote, Inflation Reduction Act, which she said herself, if you go and look at my social media, and we clipped her saying, she's like, well, that's just the name of the bill. It's really a huge environmental bill that pays for all these mandates and things. And they admit to these things. And then, oh, by the way, we're spending $1.2 trillion for the Inflation Reduction Act, which including $80 billion for 87,000 new IRS agents. And we could be using that money for so many better things. Either give it back to the taxpayers or things that we really need, things like Border Patrol agents. So it is a nightmare what our current Congresswoman has been voting for and and she's voting for Nancy Pelosi's policies, Joe Biden's failed economic policies 99% of the time, but she's not going to tell you that. And if you've sat through the same campaign cycle I've sat through the past 2 times when Elaine Luria ran, and she plays a moderate on television, and then she goes and votes with those guys. So she's not who she says she is, and you can almost set your watch to within 6 months of the election, these ads start to pop up that are lies about me, but also not telling you who she is. So that's my job, and that's one reason I run, because I'm sick of being lied about, and I know you all are sick of being lied to. The voters of the 2nd District are tired of being lied to. So that's my job for the next 60 days, and that's what we need your help with. But a couple other reasons I run, kind of my campaign theme has been about restoring strength. I talk about it all the time, restoring strength in our economy. Aside from the country's going in the wrong direction, which is probably the number one thing I hear at the doors, people want to talk about the economy. They want to talk about gas prices. They want to talk about grocery prices. We're in a recession. The 9.1% inflation we had, I had a reporter ask me, well, it's great, it's going in the right direction, it's now 8.5. Well, it was 1.7 when Joe Biden took office, so we're not celebrating that it's gone from 9.1 to 8.5. So we've got to restore that strength in our economy, finding the domestic energy sources, reopening the Keystone Pipeline, incentivizing jobs, getting people back to work. These are the things that Republicans have always stood for. These are the things that we will fight for when we take the majority back in the House. After restoring strength in our economy, we have to restore strength back at our border. I had the opportunity 2 weeks ago to travel to Hidalgo, Texas, where we went with Congresswoman Mayra Flores. There's a couple of Hispanic women down there that are running and doing a great job of reaching out to the Hispanic community, but really seeing what that crisis looks like. We could see them across from the Rio Grande. You could see people waiting to come across a river that they could wade through. No one around. While we were watching them, the Border Patrol agent we were with says, well, they're not going to come while you're standing here. They're going to wait till you leave. They'll come right across. And oh, by the way, as we were speaking, there was a guy that ran a ladder out from bushes. They literally propped the ladder up on the wall. A couple people ran over. They put the ladder back, and we were standing over here. But these are happening right in front of our faces. So, and to hear the sheriffs talk and to hear the human trafficking advocates talk about 1 out of 10 women and girls are not sexually molested or not human trafficked when they come across the border. 1 in 10 are not. Those are ridiculous statistics that the Republican women are going to ensure that there's an end to that. That doesn't happen in our country. On top of that, the drug trafficking stories. Listening to complaints of the sheriff talk about, hey, we don't have enough body bags here to put the dead bodies that we are finding that are washing up on the river. They have water intakes, they clog up their drains. I mean, it was crazy stories right in front of our eyes. So that is a crisis that the Democrats aren't talking about that we need to continue to talk about. We've got to restore strength in our border. And then restoring strength in our communities. This was an issue that we talked about last year when parents wanted a voice in their kids' education. That's something that is still important to us. I have 4 kids, 2 that are in college, 2 that are home. I mean, every single parent wants to say, we see what's going on in our classrooms. We saw it with COVID. We weren't happy. We saw this government overreach. We don't like it. We don't like it in our kids. We don't like their progressive messaging that's infiltrating to our kids' education. That's got to be stopped. So education will be on the ballot again. And then community safety. I mean, I sat through a year in 2021 where the Democrats were out to get our law enforcement community, and we didn't have anyone in the room with us. We legislated in a bubble that year, and some of the legislation we passed that year, trying to end qualified immunity, changing the way they did no-knock warrants, things that really affected their quality of life, the safety for those guys. And so what's happened because of that? We've seen the recruitment and retention go way down. You talk to Sheriff Stolley, you talk to, especially look at places like Norfolk and Portsmouth, they do not have enough law enforcement officers there. And it's a direct result of that terrible legislation we passed. And just the reputation that, it's that stems from the top-down leadership. We've got to start treating our law enforcement community like the heroes that they are. Those guys risk their life every day for us. So we've got to restore some strength for them to incentivize those guys to come back to work. So after just restoring strength in our communities, probably the most personal reason I run is restoring strength in our military, because I look at what's happened to our military as a Navy veteran, as a military spouse for 20 years, as a daughter of a veteran, and now I have 2 children who are in the military. And I look at what happened to our military last year. We just celebrated the 1-year anniversary of that Afghanistan withdrawal, where in 1 week's time, it was chaos. We pulled out from a part of the world that we provided some stability in. I had served there, many of you in this room served there, had family or friends that did, and within 1 week, you took that away from us, and you killed 13 servicemen and women. The blood of those guys is on Joe Biden's hands. We won't let them forget that. But not only did you take that stability away, now you put my kids at risk. I talk about, my son is at the Naval Academy, my second son is at VMI and Navy ROTC. So my kids are going to be in the military now and inherit this world, which I consider to be not as safe. So now you put my kids at risk. So now I'm a mad mom, right? I'm a mom on a mission, and you don't want to mess with that. So that's a really important reason I run. But we see places like Russia and what's happened in Ukraine. We're not the deterrent that we were. I'm sick of leading from behind. I'm sick of not being a strong military that I know we are. I'm sick of our friends not trusting us and our enemies not fearing us. We know that places like China are watching Taiwan. They're watching and waiting. So, over my dead body, are they going to put my kids at risk and create just a world where our military isn't strong and we can't be the deterrent that I know we can be? So those are really the biggest reasons that I run. But things are looking so good for us here in the 2nd District. We have a Congresswoman that hasn't represented this district well for 4 years now. And we are so many issues that we could really attack her on, and we will over the next 60 days. There's 3 debates coming up, but I need a couple things from you guys as well. We really need you guys to come out and vote, right? We've got to all be on one team. Now is the time to be together. We may not agree on 100%, but we're going to agree on 99% of the issues out there. And I guarantee you I'm a lot better than the alternative. So we've got to get, you guys are a huge voting base for me. So come out and vote. Early voting starts September 23rd, if you like it or not. I don't care if you vote early, I vote on election day, but just get out there and vote. Go vote. Please help if you can. Grab a yard sign, grab a magnet or a bumper sticker. If you can like our social media, sign up for our emails, volunteer to help at the office. We door knock every day of the week. We've got all kind of postcard writing campaigns, phone calls that you can do from your house, but however you can help, or just bring your friends to the polls. But we need your help. And then we need you to be excited and enthusiastic, because this is the year we take this seat back. It is a top 5 race for the Republican Party. The path through flipping the House absolutely goes through Hampton Roads. We are working our tails off, and I've been working since last March. So we're approaching the end, right? We're down to 60 days. We can get this done. The polls look fabulous. The polls are, we're not going to run away with this race. We're going to win if we work hard every day for the next 60 days and we get our people out to vote and we're all together. So that's what we need, and then we flip this seat. It is the most winnable seat in Virginia. We have 11 congressional seats here, 4 currently held by Republicans. And with the victories last year, we really should have 6 or 7 congressional seats. So the 2nd is the most winnable, followed by the 7th and the 10th. So we're going to get it done this year. It's an honor to be in the fight. I'll close with a quote from my dad that I've been speaking about lately. If you go back to 2019 and you watch my state Senate ads, on television. The very first ad that I was able to produce has my dad talking in the beginning, and my dad says, "America is the greatest country on earth, and it is our duty to serve and defend her when called on to do so." So I feel that calling. It's been an honor of a lifetime to serve this district in the state Senate. It's an honor to be in this fight for Congress and to flip the U.S. House and a fight for what I consider to be the future of the country. So thank you very much for having me. Thank you for listening to me. Thank you for voting, and it's going to be a great honor to represent you guys as your next Congresswoman for the 2nd District. But thank you very much.
Well, I know you probably don't have a whole lot of time for questions.
I'm happy to take a couple. I don't know what time.
Okay, one was, should we really be in the Ukraine spending so much of taxpayer money there?
So we've got to, first of all, we shouldn't be in that mess, right? We are in that mess as a direct result of Joe Biden's failed policies on the world stage. We are there. We are spending the money. We've got to have better accountability. I would say that. I do supporting the Ukraine, but we've got to have some accountability for where that money is going. And I'm not privy to where it's going, but I have a lot of questions I'd like to ask. So I worry about, you know, what happens if we don't help the Ukraine, but it's a lot of money they're spending. And so I want to see where that money is going. But it's a good question.
So I have several questions on this. You would probably remember back in 2021, there was a bill, SB 868. It was a discrimination bill. It went to the House. It got changed. It had gender identity and what do you call it? Transgender.
Was that the Virginia Values Act? The one that they like to...
Yes, the one that they're using to say that we can put boys in the girls' room, et cetera, and everything, and you voted for that. And they would like to know why.
Yeah, so it's not a bathroom bill. There was a lot of misinformation in the primary. Thank you for asking about that. But this is the Virginia Values Act. What that bill was prohibiting discrimination in things like housing and employment, and had nothing to do with schools. As a matter of fact, I voted against transgender policies in K through 12 education twice in a Senate bill and a House bill. I have patron legislation keeping transgender men out of women's sports. I have been very clear throughout the primary that I do not support men using women's bathrooms. That was not a bathroom bill. I'm also a person that doesn't believe we should discriminate, and I'm a person that believes we should protect our religious freedoms. So anytime I am brought a bill, which was a Democrat bill, that I have to vote on, I don't walk out of the room, I take hard votes when I have to, I want to ensure that no one is discriminated against, and that bill protected for discrimination from people like disabled veterans, pregnant women, nursing mothers, people who were disabled, and people who were from the LGBTQ community. So, and people who are minorities. So protecting discrimination in any sense, but I want everybody to have a house and I want everybody to have a job, because I don't want you sitting at home so that I'm paying my tax dollars for your unemployment. So I consider all of those things when I vote on that type of bill. And so that's why I took that vote, ensuring religious freedoms were protected. But
okay, but yeah, but that's the bill they're using to say that that's where it came from. I know the Board of Education made it a priority that school boards had to either accept it or not accept it.
Yeah, the school board bill was separate, so those were separate bills. When you look at transgender policies in schools specifically, those were separate bills that I had voted against that were passed because we were in the minority that year, but very clearly voted against those bills.
Can I go just a little bit further, please, and answer it for me, just personally for me? And that is, Bill DeStep and Amanda Chase and several other conservatives did not vote for that bill. Because if you read it, it accommodates gender people, gender identity.
Sexual orientation.
And she already told you that she didn't want gender identity to be
when you go to the mall, you will accommodate them in public places. And my question to you is, what about the restrooms in the mall and the other public places where they can go?
The bill doesn't talk about restrooms at all. The word bathrooms, the word restrooms is not in.
Sexual orientation.
I can only be clear,
Okay.
and as I was clear in the primary, I do not think that men should be in women's restrooms, period.
What about transgender
Period.
people
I do not-
that were
Again,
once men that are now?
I do not believe that men should be in women's restrooms.
Okay, then
and that
she's answered
there's
the
a bathroom is not even an issue in that bill. The word bathroom, the word restroom is not in the bill. I will say that. So that's my stance. But anyway.
People in public, they present an appearance, and it is that appearance which leads them to the bathroom of their choice. And there's nothing we're going to be doing about that. There's nothing, you're not gonna have somebody.
We know that they're using the bill for that.
Inspecting the private parts.
Yeah,
Everyone
and
walks
I'll
in
say
the
this
box.
about just gay marriage, that was another issue, we got beat up on this and that, but government should stay out of the bedroom. I am so sick of government overreach. That is the biggest issue that I sat through in 2020 and 2021. It was government trying to have their fingers in every facet of my life. And I hate big government. If there's one thing I hate, it's big government. So in addition to taxes, but big government. So I try to vote against big government and government having any say, especially in what goes on behind closed doors, but.
Okay,
anyway,
so
what's
you know, a
next?
lot of people believe that the 2020 election was stolen. So they want to know what can we do about it besides just outvoting the cheating? And a lot of it had to do with having the, you know, the boxes.
Yeah.
Then they're not, you know, overlooked by anything. They're out, you know.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
people
we-
can just stuff them and,
We
you know, there was a
passed some
lot of stuff.
Crazy election reform laws in 2020 and 2021, and they were a nightmare. And we would vote no, and we didn't even know what they were trying to accomplish with this bill. Things like pre-registering 16-year-olds, same-day voter registration, keeping people on the absentee ballot list year after year without them requesting absentee ballots. The big things were like getting rid of the photo ID, getting the
Right,
drop boxes.
yes.
Having your tax dollars pay for the prepaid postage on the absentee ballot. I mean, you guys paid $2 million in 2021, and these absentee ballots were ready to go. This was like it was like February, March of that year. The registrar's office is starting putting absentee ballots together. The Democrats come up with this bill that's $2 million we're going to spend with stamps. The registrar told us they had to pull the envelopes and start licking stamps and putting them on the envelope, which is ridiculous. So there's so many election changes that I don't like, that I voted against every single time. It's such an important issue to me that I was the only Republican to pass an election reform bill this past session. It took me 2 years to get this bill passed, and it was signed by Governor Youngkin, that cleared the voter rolls of deceased people, because we were going for the code currently stated every 3 months. The Office of Vital Statistics sends a note to the registrar's office to clear the voter roll of people who have died. Well, it wasn't happening every 3 months. It was happening 3, 4, 5 months. So my bill required it to happen weekly, and we talked to the registrar's office and we talked to Office of Vital Statistics. They said that would be helpful, that would reduce our workload, that's a good idea. Took 2 years to pass that bill, but it passed with bipartisan support out of a Democrat Senate 2 years in a row, and this year it got signed by the governor, so we will have cleaner voter rolls. And we have 45 days of early voting, so to me, that's really important to have a clean voter roll.
Yes.
So we've got to restore some confidence in how we run our elections. It's an extremely important issue to me. So, and, oh, by the way, if you remember our Republican primary a few months ago, the Democrats spent $600,000 in our Republican primary to try to have one of my opponents elected because they thought they could beat him. Because they thought he was a weaker candidate, they lied about me, they sent all the crazy mail that I know you guys got, that lied about my voting record and really sent it off in a different direction. So we worked our tails off to counter that, and they completely underestimated the amount of work we did, relying on our networks, relying on our friends, to just clear the air, relying on whatever media we could find, on social media, but to really spread the truth, because there's got to be better truth in politics. It's so frustrating for me right now to watch the Democrats run, especially Elaine Luria runs her campaign off of lies. I'm sick of being lied to. I've been lied to for 4 years about who you are and how you vote. So I will never lie to my constituents. I will say that. That's not the home I was raised in. That's not the place I come from. So I am sick of watching those lies. But election integrity is so important to me. We've got to restore that confidence, which I feel like a lot of voters have lost. So you have my word that will always be a priority for me.
Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
thank you.
And your campaign guy told me you have to leave now,
We're
so.
trying to get to every civic league and there's one every night, and there's lots of meetings. But thank you guys for coming tonight. We're gonna leave some campaign information, some signs, and I just
Great.
appreciate you
Can
having
you
me.
We
get questions
appreciate
from the
it.
audience, or are they always pre-screened everywhere you go? Every
No,
time?
no.
Yeah, Diane's
I'm
got
just
them,
wondering,
so.
because
You
the
can
people-
contact our office if you have any
Because
visual
I've been
websites
to
on
so
there.
many of these, and I don't see questions directly from the audience. I always see
Feel free to reach out via email as